my name is Jane, and these are my answers to a sample TOEFL speaking test. The test is Practice Test 1 from the Cambridge Preparation for the TOEFL Test book. You will notice during my answers, I don't always look directly at the camera. You will often see me looking down at my notes. This is because even though I am a native English speaker, I needed to make substantial notes in order to be able to answer these questions well. You should also make notes when you are taking the TOEFL test. All right, let's begin. A skill that I possess, which is a necessity in today's modern world, is my ability to use computers and other modern technology. My job is teaching English to speakers of other languages. Some people might think, you don't need to know how to use technology for that. All you need to do is speak English. That's not true. In order to do my job every day, I need to be able to use Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, various audio-video technologies, including the one that I'm using right now to create this video. I have to be able to use my office computer and my classroom computer and projector. This is why, for me to do my job as well as I possibly can, knowing how to use technology is the most important skill that I can have. While many people may prefer to be their own boss, I personally prefer being able to work for someone else. This is because at the end of the day, I get to go home and I don't need to think about work if I don't need to or want to. A good friend of mine used to own her own business. At the end of her workday, well, she didn't get to go home and turn off work. She had to continue thinking about work for the entire time that she was at home. Any kind of situation that might arise, such as a problem with her employees, a problem with her facility, anything like that, she had to deal with immediately. I prefer being able to go home and to enjoy my free time. This is why I think it's better to work for someone else than to be my own boss.
Hey, do you know anything about the work-study program?
A bit. You know that guy, Jim, in our philosophy class? Well, he got a grant. You have to fill in papers about your financial needs, and then you're allotted an amount of money that you can earn and told how much you get per hour.
Oh, do you know how much he was paid?
He was allotted the full amount. You know, Jim's from a big family, so money's tight.
Uh-huh. Hey, I heard there's an opening in the astronomy department. That would give me some good job experience. You applying for something?
Well, it'd be nice to get some job experience and be able to work on campus, but I'm not eligible. You have to really need financial aid. And between my summer job and my parents helping me out, well...
Oh, you know what? I earned some money last summer. I wonder if I'll qualify.
Maybe not for the full amount. Why don't you just go fill out the financial needs assessment form and find out? No harm in trying.
The reading and the audio both discuss getting financial aid through a work-study program on a university campus. The requirements for qualifying for the work-study program involve completing a complete financial disclosure form to show the amount of money that the student has. If the student is able to show that they really desperately need the money, they will qualify for financial aid, assuming that they are also a full-time student. If the student qualifies, the advantages of working in a work-study program are getting job experience in their field that can look really good on their resume or CV. Additionally, the work is on campus, which makes it easy for the student to go to their job. And of course, they earn extra spending money, which can be very useful for students on a limited budget.
We have been discussing the three symbiotic relationships between species: mutualism, in which both organisms benefit; parasitism, in which one benefits and the other is harmed; and commensalism, where one benefits while neither benefiting nor harming the other. Now, of course, these relationships are not always clear-cut. For example, there is a plant called a bee orchid. Its flowers look like female bees, to the male bee anyway. The bee orchid tricks the male bee into mating with the flower, thus pollinating it. However, we don't know if, in fact, the relationship between this particular plant and the bee is mutualism, parasitism, or commensalism. Sometimes the relationship actually changes. Let me give you some examples. We have bacteria on our skin, for instance. These colonies of bacteria don't harm us. So we can say that at this point, the relationship is commensal. But what happens if we get burned? The bacteria on our skin can take advantage of the burn and cause infections. The bacteria turn into what we call an opportunistic pathogen. A pathogen, by the way, is parasitic. Here's another example. Shrimp and crabs take advantage of colonies of coral which provide a nice home. They neither harm nor benefit the coral colonies. So the relationship here is also commensal. But sometimes a coral-eating sea star attacks the coral. At that point, the shrimp and crabs defend the coral. Without these creatures to protect it, the coral would be eaten. So, in this case, the relationship becomes mutual. The coral and its defenders are now in a relationship in which both organisms benefit.
The professor gives two examples illustrating how some symbiotic relationships can change over time. The first example he gives is of bacteria on human skin. Initially, the bacteria doesn't bother us at all. This is a commensalist relationship. There's no effect one way or the other. However, if the human suffers a burn, the bacteria turns into what the professor refers to as an opportunistic pathogen causing a parasitic infection. Or, in this case, the relationship turns into parasitism instead of commensalism. The second example is of crabs and shrimp, which reside in coral. Initially, the professor says this is a commensal relationship because they don't affect each other. However, if a predator, such as a coral-eating sea star, were to attack the coral, the crabs and shrimp would defend the coral, and in this case, the benefit is mutual. So this is a mutualistic relationship.
Hey, Steve. I heard you've moved out of the dorms.
Well, no, I haven't. I'd like to, but...
Yeah, what's the problem?
Well, the places close to campus are expensive, and the ones I can afford are too far to walk. So, I've got to figure out what transportation's going to cost me.
Buses and trains aren't that expensive, are they?
Nah, the problem is schedules. Sometimes I have to stay on campus late, after things stop running. So I'd have to take a taxi or get a car.
What's wrong with getting a car? Gets you where you want to go at your convenience.
A car? In the city? No, thanks. Besides, insurance rates are high for my age group and, other costs. Maintenance, parking.
That's a point for being close to campus. Also, it's easy to get home if you forget something.
Yeah, and sometimes I like to take an afternoon nap because of the late hours I'm in the lab. It'd be nice to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Can't if you live out in some suburb. Maybe it's best to stay in the dorms right on campus.
Yeah, well, one of my complaints about the dorms is they're too noisy in the daytime. Can't sleep because everyone's got their music going.
You get your meals and don't have to clean up afterwards.
I think I could save a lot doing my own shopping.
So what's the difference in costs of a dorm, a place near campus, one on the train line, or on the bus route?
I don't know.
You don't know? Well, if I were you, I'd get all the figures and make a hypothetical budget. A budget showing you taking a taxi 3 times a week and a budget for the costs of a car, and just put all the possibilities on paper. I think you'd make a better decision doing that. And also make a list of advantages and disadvantages.
The man is a university student who lives on campus in a dorm. He doesn't want to continue living in the dorm. He wants to move off campus. One of his biggest complaints is that living in the dorm is really noisy. Students are often playing really loud music and he can't sleep. However, he's worried that he can't afford to live in any of the apartments nearby because they're too expensive, and he's concerned about commuting from the suburbs due to scheduling problems related to public transportation and the costs of buying his own car. I personally, if I were in his situation, I would choose to continue living on campus. It doesn't sound like he has a lot of money to spare, and you can save a lot of money by living in a dorm. I would suggest that he invest in some really good earplugs so that he can nap when his neighbors in the dorm are playing loud music, and that he should spend his time focusing on studying and saving as much money as possible.
Although the entertainment industry is concerned with telling a good story, it has had a profound effect on people's conceptions and misconceptions of the world around them. Let me give you an example. There are many films and TV programs in which a serious crime takes place and a police detective solves, or maybe doesn't solve, the crime. It appears that these fictional crimes, added to news reports of real crime, cause viewers' perception of the rate of criminal behavior to outrank, to exaggerate reality. In other words, the actual, let's say, murder rate is probably well below people's perception of the murder rate. I've just been talking about misconceptions of crime rates, but there are other misconceptions which may be more harmful. Now, I'm not saying that believing in an exaggerated level of criminality, say a high murder rate, isn't harmful. It could cause a lot of people undue stress, for example. But what I mean is misconceptions about race and gender stereotypes. A person of a different race or a female being typecast into certain roles. Think about, for example, the portrayal of a person in a wheelchair. He or she is either portrayed as overcoming incredible odds to do heroic deeds, or, on the other hand, being a helpless victim. Does this promote understanding or misconceptions? In the movies, doctors perform miracles, lawyers win cases, and crime scene investigators find the evidence. People in these actual professions often get clients with unreasonable expectations. Professional people comment that the reality of their daily routine, their job, is seldom like that portrayed in the media. Students are sometimes disillusioned about their career choice because the job seemed much more interesting in the television program than in reality. Unfortunately, we make these judgmental mistakes about our own society, knowing full well the existence of the fantasy created by the media industry.
According to the professor, the media causes a lot of misconceptions among people who view said media. The examples that she gives are as follows. She discusses crime shows and how watching these crime shows can cause the average person to believe that the murder rate is much higher than it actually is, and this can cause stress. She talks about how typecasting and stereotypes can cause people to view people of certain races, genders, and people with disabilities with various stereotypes instead of being able to understand them and see them in a variety of roles. She also discusses how the media tends to portray doctors, lawyers, and crime scene investigators as very successful people who have very exciting jobs. As a result, people are sometimes disappointed when individuals in these professions fail or are not overly successful, or when students discover that enrolling in these careers is actually kind of boring.